Hello and welcome to episode 12 of Natural Expansion, the StarCraft 2 podcast by myself, Wardí, from WardiTV. Today we've got a special edition of the podcast for you guys, and we're going to be doing something a little bit different. We've got three interviews from pro players, and we're talking all about the brand new Balance Test patch, which just got played at Home Story Cup this weekend, just gone by, and which has just gone live on the ladder in the last 24 hours. We're going to be talking to Harstem from Protoss, Lambo for Zerg, and Optimus for Terran to get all of their opinions on the new balance patch. And going to be, so used to calling it the test map. That's what went wrong there. But on the new balance patch, so very interested to hear their opinions. I'm just going to preface this just slightly, guys, by saying there is some audio issues. We recorded two of these three interviews at Home Story Cup, and while the Harstem interview for the most part is okay, there's a little bit of a weird kind of like, I don't even know how to describe it, but halfway through there's a little bit of background noise. It's really weird. It's some issue with the microphone, I think. But in the Lambo interview, it was actually very loud. We couldn't find somewhere quiet to do it. You can still hear me in Lambo. It's just got a lot of background noise. So I'm hoping it's somewhat listenable for you guys. I've listened through it. I think it's okay. I think it's definitely worth still putting out there. It is something I'll be looking into better in the future to kind of, try and find somewhere more quiet, I guess. A lot of it was just the background noise. Obviously, it's Home Story Cup. A lot of people are drinking, partying, and having a great time watching StarCraft 2 together, so it is what it is, but hopefully you guys still enjoy the content. Again, as I said, we'll try and fix those sort of issues for the future. But if you do have anything to share, any thoughts or opinions, do get down in the comments and let us know. Other than that, guys, it's going to be Harstem at first, followed by Lambo, then Optimus talking about the balance patch. So enjoy, sit back, relax, and listen to all of their fantastic pro-level insight.
Alright guys, we got Harstem here to talk about the new balance patch. You just had a great first day at Home Story Cup when you got out your group in second place. So, how are you feeling about the patch? You enjoying it so far? Enjoying the change?
It's very new. It feels very different, which is good. There are some things, of course, that I don't like, mainly balance-wise. I think they're pretty spot on so far with the design changes. Even though I have my doubts with making the Infestor that much stronger. I like what they did with the Raven, for example, where they really went for a support unit, which is like a unit where you have 2 or 3 of them, and it's not going to get more useful. Like the difference between 6 Ravens and 3 Ravens is pretty small after the patch. I would like to have more units like this, whether they be for Protoss or for Zerg, and I feel like with the Infestor it's more like the other way around. They made it more of a core unit than it was before.
Right, you say that, the more infested you make, the more use you get out of them. Gets to that ridiculous point where you mass stack. And the same with Vipers as well, right? Like Vipers are pretty... To a lesser extent.
Sure. I think the difference between 5 Vipers and 15 Vipers is pretty irrelevant as well.
Sure.
Okay. But I think Viper is already a better example of a support unit actually. Like, you don't need infinite of them, just a couple.
Okay. Awesome. So obviously one of the big changes with Protoss is the removal of the mothership core. Is that something you've been dealing well with? Do you think the shield battery is a good replacement for it so far? Do you like the way it works, and do you think it's a better fix for saving Protoss, I guess?
It's an adequate replacement in PvT and PvZ. In PvP it doesn't seem to quite do the job because it doesn't deal well with units that one-shot probes. So 2 Oracles, 2 Adepts, all of those in combination one-shot probes. Which means that you basically need double the units to secure the base as you did before. Before, against 2 Oracles, you would have 4 Stalkers, 2 Sentries in your natural, the Mothership Core in the main base, and that would be sufficient. Now you need 5 units in every base, so Oracle is a lot stronger, and the game feels a lot more gambly because of that. Like, DT kind of beats Stargate, Phoenix Save Up beats Oracles, it's a lot more, the build orders matter a lot more.
Do you know if that's sort of issue in PvZ, say when they have Bane lanes and so on? Is that not still an issue, or?
We open Oracle so much that I don't really feel like it's an issue. On top of that, the early all-ins, so whether that be two base builds, seem a lot easier to hold because of the Chrono Boost. You can get a couple of extra units out, and I feel like most things when you scout it, you can just respond in time. If you don't scout it, it might be a little harder, but if you do scout it, I actually think it's a bit easier because the shield battery is really quite strong if it's in the correct position.
Right. So it's still very positional based, like the pylons were for the overcharge. So is that something you've been struggling getting used to, or?
It's less because you only need to the pylons needed to scare away units from certain areas of the probes, and
the battery just needs to be in a certain area.
In a certain range, yeah, and it can cover all the probes there. You can move the probes there, so I feel like it's a lot easier positional way. Like I noticed my pylon placement getting a bit sloppier again as well, so you should be a bit careful with that.
All right. So have you been have you been enjoying the shield battery then? Do you think it's really something which will stay in the game? Do you think it's like balanced right now? Because I've seen some instances where it's like there's like a few Marines are like trying to fight something, like nothing starts dying, and like I don't know, it feels very strong if you have 2 or 3 max like set up on a third base.
The problem I have right now is just that PvT has been completely shafted by the patch in a way that I don't think it's possible to fix without big nerfs or even design changes.
Okay. Is that because of the Chrono Boost or the shield battery or?
Right. So the Terran players will know this, but Terran builds are a lot tighter than Zerg and Protoss builds are. It doesn't mean that they need to build it faster, it just means they don't have as much money to spare with their build orders. If you're lacking 50 minerals at a certain point, like your build is just basically ruined. Like your medevac will be delayed by 10-12 seconds, and it's I feel like that's way more the case with Terran than it is with Protoss and Zerg, and I'm pretty sure I'm right. So if you have to force the Terran to scout every single game with an early SCV, which they need to against Protoss to not die against proxy oracles or proxy robo, that already costs a lot for Terran, which kind of ruins their build. Then in a lot of situations, they also need to build a bunker early on, and Terran builds really can't afford bunkers. So you're already eliminating a lot of builds by what the Protoss does early on, which I don't think is good. I think it's always good if there's a lot of available builds early on, going into different styles preferably as well, but you need to have one of the two. So you either need to have a lot of available builds into one style is fine, or you have a single build into multiple different styles, which would also be fine. That's what PvP kind of was before. But in PvT right now, the case is they hardly have any build order variety, and they don't have a single viable style against Protoss. They can't really play, like, mech is still, like, they didn't buff mech. It's still as bad as it was before, but it seems to be the one that's going to be more viable, because Bio is just so bad right now, with the new Colossus, even with the new Disruptor, at Erasmus is insane, basically. It feels really hard for Terran.
So do you think they need to sort of buff something for Terran, or do you think they need to scale back changes in Protoss? Because obviously, I think going into the patch, Terran started to realize, like, hey, we're not actually really getting any buffs. Like, they're changing the Raven, which is, again, maybe a good change overall, but it doesn't really buff Terran. It only kind of makes them weaker points of the game. So they didn't really gain a lot, whereas Protoss got a lot of different changes, Zerg as well.
Yeah, it's funny because like you said, like the battery change I thought was going to be very bad against Terran mainly. I thought, like, how am I going to defend anything? But it's actually the most powerful against Terran by far.
Just because you can have a few units here and there, it just doesn't die.
Split, and the early drops, like 6-7 Marines, if they don't target one probe, all of them, like not a single probe will fall with a single battery there. So you have some more time to react to stuff. The mine change is still a little old in my mind. They just ruined the mine, right? That's what a lot of people are saying. Maybe not so much in TVP, maybe it's more of a TVZ thing, where it's basically made Bio completely unviable. It's hard because I understand what they were trying to do. Like, it's very frustrating, especially for lower level. This was a change catered towards the lower level players who were having trouble with mines, forgetting about them, either in their main base or somewhere else on the map. It makes sense, but they did make the unit a lot worse by it. So it either should be cheaper, build faster, so to kind of make it a throwaway unit, so it can do. Like, I wouldn't mind if the mine was 25, something like to make it extremely cheap, make it build very fast, because the way it is now, like you said, it just made a lot of things not viable. So a change like that could be very good. Make the mine cheap, just try it. Like, we're trying stuff anyway now.
Yeah.
Please, let's, get more design changes. We're in a... It's well known that if there's in a crisis situation, you can get the most changes through, Companies doing poorly. I feel like the game isn't doing poorly game-wise, but everyone, like, it's a massive mess right now after they released the patch, and they kind of should capitalize on that. Like, they can push changes through right now that would never fly at any other point in time. I think they should they should abuse this very hard. If I was Blizzard or the balance team, that's what I would do. For example, I would also reinstate the old Marauder shots. So just buff the Marauder for the late game, or just in general.
Yeah, I think that's something which you would...
It would make a lot of sense. Just make the Mine better, make the Marauder better. You probably have a viable race against Protoss at least again. And if you manage to get Bio back in TVC, you'll have a unit that can actually deal with Ultra again without having to have either Ghost or Liberators, which is kind of what we like to see. Then we're talking about Bio being a lot more viable. I think that's the main issue right now, just Terran being too weak in my mind. But then you see the results, which are a bit confusing.
You want them to push through a lot, try a lot of different things out. As a player who obviously has to play competitively, and there's a couple of things I want to ask you. So first of all, I guess, what's it like actually playing a big tournament like Home Story Cup on the new patch? Obviously you've had a chance to practice a lot, but do you think it's affected other people? Do you think it's a good thing?
I think Home Story is a big tournament, but it's not a WCS,
right,
it's
okay,
not a
sure.
CSL. And those are the tournaments that, in my mind, the game should be perfect at those tournaments.
So this is right.
This is off season for us. It's after BlizzCon, it's before the new WCS season. Blizzard should do whatever they like with the game at this point.
What about with WSG coming up though? Is that something in your mind, or do you think it's
qualified, so I don't give a shit.
Okay, well there you go. Hashtag fuck Wardí on that one, right?
No, that one is hard because it is such a life-changing amount of money that you would want a race to be viable. So I hope they fix it before that.
So I guess my next question is, how do you find the balance of giving enough time to make sure things are tested properly before you add something else in? Like right now, is it just such a glaring issue that you need to do something? Sure, but is it because you've had enough time to play all these games? And is that, I feel as though it's a bit of a weird situation because we've actually got big tournaments that are being played on this new patch. It actually feels for us that people are playing the new patch much more than they kind of played test maps before, I suppose.
Yeah, so that's a bonus, I think.
Yeah.
Because usually what would happen is no one would play the test map, then the patch gets released, everyone like, oh my god, it's so terrible. But now the patch hasn't even been released yet, so I mean, in theory, nothing is wrong. Everything can change still. We can't really complain about that. I think the way Blizzard is handling that is very smart this year around. But yeah, they do need to bring some fixes to certain things. Like you mentioned, we don't know everything yet. For example, in PvZ, a lot of people are now saying that Zerg is very strong late game. But it wouldn't surprise me if Tosses figure out a way to get to late game in such a way that we'll be able to beat them there.
And that's why you need a lot of time as well, right? Because you go through iterations, like maybe Zerg keeps killing you in mid game, or you keep killing them in mid game, and then you get to that point where Zerg finally figures out how to survive, and you get late game games, and then you have to figure that out. So it's a bit of a tough one.
It's different when you're playing a matchup where, in PvT for example, where Terran has 7 different ways to die. So Terran is trying to survive to the mid game, to just die in the mid game. And if they manage to survive the mid game, they still die in the late game. So it's like the race is not favored in a single state of the game. Like, it's obvious it needs a fix, and it's gonna need it. Like, all the games that are being played right now are not testing the new TVC, it's not testing the new TVP. So it's basically valuable time that's being wasted that could be testing actual new changes. So I think it's they really should be on top of it. I'm a bit sad that they haven't changed stuff
already.
I think the Chrono Boost is big, and there's an easy fix there, which is spreading it out over 20 seconds.
Right.
Same impact on upgrades, less impact on early rushes. It just makes sense to me, honestly. Like, I don't see anything against that. So I'm a bit sad about that, but so far this year has been an impressive one for how Blizzard handled design, balance, and maps. I think it's been good.
Did you like the way that the game was kind of looking before the patch? Do you think the matchups were kind of nice, or were there certain things that bothered you a lot?
A bit boring. PvZ was very boring.
With the Skytoss playstyles, or something else in particular?
Hydra Bane was
Hydra Bane.
Like, we've been playing Hydra Bane for 6-7 months now.
I think it was even longer, right? I mean, well, before Hydra Bane, it was like Roach Bane, which is kind of similar, right?
Yeah, it's
very similar way
it
to play.
just stops not doing anything, basically.
And just defending,
defending, hoping that you survive the late game.
So what I guess brings me to a bit of a question about PvZ. What's PvZ like right now? We talked a lot about PvT and PvP already.
PvZ is Like it's the matchup I played the most, but I have the feeling I know the least about. It's I think Infestor are very strong still. Hydra Bane is still quite viable. Then there's some Colossus play, but I'm not sure what plays it has. I'm not sure what plays Stalkers have either. It's just it's a very confusing matchup for me. Because there are days where I win a lot with certain builds, and the next day, like, I can't kill a single unit with them. It just feels like stuff is being figured out. I wanted to say random, but it's not random. It's just like we find counters to each other's builds very fast, so the meta is really still developing in that matchup. So it's so hard to make any big claims about that I feel.
Okay. So that's one of the tough ones, I guess, where PvT obviously so desperately needs something changed, but PvZ needs more time to be figured out still.
Yeah, but PvZ also needs figured out. So I feel like the best thing to do would just be to buff Terran units rather than nerfing Zerg or Protoss. Just go ham on, like what I mentioned.
Because Bio's not viable at all in TVZ right now, is what people are saying. Like, a couple players are trying to play it, but I think the reality is Bio was like a dead style in the last patch, right? And now Fungal's better, and I think there's like less of an answer to Broodlords than before, and it's just like nothing. And like obviously Widowmine's as well gone, so you have to play a Bio tank, which is already pretty.
Yeah, and don't forget that the Overlord is faster as well, so it's harder to do stuff unscouted.
Which is a lot of Terran as well, like doing early damage and like playing off of a lead to get into a strong mid game position. So
for sure. Yeah.
So you think Terran's the real weakness right now, the real thing that needs to be looked at the most?
Yeah, they just need buffs. They need buffs.
Bit of love.
Extreme ones. I think go ahead, change the way. I honestly like the Widowmine change.
Yeah.
Make it as a unit that's not completely game ending, because the investment for it, let's not forget, was very little for what it could do. No detections, what is it, 75-25?
Yeah, 75-25.
You can drop multiple from a medevac, speeds in. If you don't have detection, the game ends. Like, that's just the way it is. I can imagine, especially on lower levels, that being frustrating. So I think the change, with that in mind, is a good one, but you need to give the unit something back. Like, make it build in 10 seconds. I'm not saying that's gonna make it work or that it's balanced, but I think you can try something like make it like 25-25 or even just 50 mineral. Like, fuck it, just go ham on it. Like, it doesn't matter. It's a slow unit. It's not fast on the other side of the map. It needs time to burrow, and it dies 100% after it shoots now. Like, unless you can pick it up magically with a medevac every single time. But I think there's some potential there.
Alright, awesome. Well, just before we wrap up, just want to ask you kind of what's next for you. Obviously, you said you weren't qualified for WSG, so you're going to practice hard over the winter, just prepping for WCS, or?
Yeah, probably. I'm still debating whether I want to go to Korea or not. Heard some rumors about the times of the GSL qualifiers, so I might want to try my luck at that once. It's always been a dream of mine to play in the GSL, so that would be fun.
Right.
So I'll consider it. Depends a bit on what shape I'm in, how I feel about the game. Not much else going on, I would say. Just waiting for WCS.
Waiting for WCS. It's kind of a dark period, right? No one knows what's going to happen. We sort of know the format's going to stay the same, but it might be different events and stuff. So
yeah, but it's going to be largely similar.
Yeah. All right, awesome. Well, thank you so much for the time. Any shout-outs? I know you've got a team to mention, so...
My boys over at Asterion, thanks very much. And Mijn Domein, I appreciate the sponsorship. And sending me here, of course. Helping me live my dream, Wardí.
Live the dream.
Live the dream. Of course, big shout out to our boy Tate for hosting the Hopes World Cup once again. And
best tournament of the year. Funnest tournament of the year.
Funnest.
Definitely a way to describe it.
Alright, yeah, that's it. Thank you for the interview, of course, Wardí.
Thank you for being part of it. Appreciate it. Alright guys, we got Lambo here for some Zerg talk about the new balance patch. First of all, Home Story Cup, because we're here. Didn't really go the way you wanted it, I suppose.
Yeah, I'm not too happy with the result, but honestly, I don't mind it at all because it's Home Story Cup and I can enjoy my time, cast a bit, have some good time with the lads.
You got WSG coming up, right?
Yeah. My next tournament is going to be WSG in Barcelona. I'm going to practice a lot for it. I really expect to get top 12 there, which makes it to
global finals. That's awesome. Yeah, what have you thought? I think one of the interesting questions I asked Harstem earlier when I did this was the idea of actually having big tournaments on the new patch already. Do you think it's been a big kind of help for like being able to test things on the patch and actually getting people to play it before it comes out? And what's your thoughts on actually playing kind of the balance patch so soon, even before it's out in these tournaments?
I think it's probably good. Homester Cup is like not the biggest tournament, but we all practiced for it obviously because we have nothing else. And now we can actually fix it like before WSG, which is a bit more important, like a bit more serious. So I think overall it's good because we can also give like feedback to the balance team from Blizzard, and like Blizzard just in general sees like our games. So I think overall it's good.
And what do you think of the way that they've kind of approached this patch? Because there's been a lot of kind of big design changes. Are they something you think have we kind of moved in the right direction, or is there in particular something you don't like about it?
I think just big design changes keep StarCraft 2 new, fresh, healthy, and I think that overall is good. I don't necessarily like that they made the infantry better. I think that's probably going into the wrong direction. Also the Stalker. I feel like, you know, the Wings of Liberty times from Blur and Faster, you really don't want those again. The Heart of the Swarm times from Mass Stalkers, you also really don't want those again. And yeah, besides those two changes, mostly I like them. I think it's cool that they made the High Templar, like they made some casual friendly changes too, like for the High Templar, for the Widow Mine. Now that it's going to be free to play, maybe a bit easier to get into the game. So yeah, overall, mostly positive.
And what do you think about free to play as well, just as you mentioned it? Excited for it? Think it's going to be a good thing?
I'm really excited for it. I actually have a lot of friends that actually texted me because they know I play the game and they saw that it's going to be free to play and they're actually going to start it. So awesome. I hope that's the case for multiple people out there to just try it, because StarCraft is very hard to get into. A lot of people just don't, like, they're not going to pay the money because they don't know if they're actually going to enjoy it. It's very different from what the usual crowd plays, so I think it's pretty cool.
Awesome. So I just want to talk a bit about each matchup. Obviously you're playing Zerg right now, so we'll just start with, I mean, ZVZ, just because it's the mirror, but it hasn't really changed too much. There's a couple kind of later game changes. I think one of the big things is the overload speed as well. Generally good changes, you liking it?
I really like the overload speed change. You could say it's a bit sad that the early game variance goes a bit down because, for example, Gas Pool Hedge is not as good anymore, like at all. I don't think you're going to see it played too much. With Hedge Gas Pool, the Ling Bane all-ins get a lot worse because you can't hide the first 6 Zerglings. The overlord always sees them going out on the map, so you can't just hide 6 Zerglings somewhere and morph into Banes. And yeah, that's probably bad for some of the aggressive styles, and you're not going to see as many early game aggression anymore, but
do you think that's a bad thing overall?
I think that's a good thing, actually. I think that's a good thing. Yeah, just to make ZVZ a bit more stable. I think in general it's already the shortest matchup probably on average. I don't have the stats, but I'm pretty sure it is.
Yeah, it's real fast. I mean, in the global finals we had a ZVZ finals, and some of the games were just like 4 minutes, and you don't see that as much in the other matchups as you do in ZVZ. It's just a lot more common.
I think that's going to fix that a bit. I think the later stages of ZVZ are pretty technical, so I think it's cool that you're going to see those a bit more. And yeah, the final buff is overall a buff in the roach fights, but worse against Muta, so you can't just defend with the final Ravager anymore. You actually need some anti-air, like you need to make some additional queens. That's one of the changes. The lurkers are actually really quick, so they're not getting countered as much by the Vipers anymore. By Blinding Cloud, by Abduct, they still get countered quite a bit, but then you need a lot of Vipers. But yeah, I don't think the late game is figured out at all yet. With the Pheasant Tyrant, it might actually, like, I wouldn't be sure how to counter, for example, someone that camps with lurkers and festers and broodlords. But yeah, I haven't had a game like this, so I can't talk too much about the late game.
All right, fair enough. So obviously, let's go talk about ZVT, I guess, which has been a bit of an interesting one because going in towards before the patch, Bio was already struggling quite a bit. I think a lot of people would say. A lot of people had moved towards mech. Even if some of the Koreans were still playing Bio a fair bit, now with the fungal becoming a lot stronger, we're not seeing any Bio at all, and obviously the Widowmine nerf really doesn't help either. So, I mean, first of all, do you think it's good that mech's being kind of pushed as the way to play, or do you think it's better to have both styles viable? Because I think in ZVT, a lot of people love watching Bio versus Zerg as one of their favorite matchups.
I think most of the people have this as their favorite matchup, so I think both styles should be viable. I personally prefer playing against Bio 2 because it's just more fun, there's more action happening. I think it's cool that they make mech viable, but I think they shouldn't push Bio down. Like, Bio was already weak and transitioned towards the late game, and now with the final and also the Parasitic Bomb, it's also a bit better against like Liberator transitions now, so Bio basically is a huge all-in now. Like, you can't really transition out of it, which I don't like too much, because it was already hard before, you know. As soon as they got out Hive Tech, I think the Swarmos are actually a bit too slow. Like, they feel so slow now.
Right.
So yeah, mech is pretty good right now. which I don't mind. There's still, of course, some like the immobility that you can exploit, but yeah.
What do you think they should maybe change to Terran to try and make bio a bit more viable? I know it's a tough question, but because I think it's a similar issue in TVP right now as well, where bio just isn't really cutting it as something which can be used. So do you think there's like an overarching buff that could help both matchups? Or
I don't know about both matchups. I'm not sure if TVP is figured out yet on a new patch. Probably isn't, but Protoss seems very strong. So I don't know. I think it's better to do the matchups one by one and like nerf the other race rather than buffing bio, because bio is already pretty good. So like it would have to be a really small change, and I wouldn't really know anything that could.
What do you think about the Widowmine change? Is that something you liked, or?
I honestly, for pro level, I don't like it. I think for casuals it's better because Widowmine drops otherwise distract you. But I think for pro level it's actually a really bad change because Widowmines already weren't the best composition. Like right now, mainly tanks were being played because Muta was also out of fashion. And yeah, I think it's just an unnecessary nerf. Like it just makes it worse. No real reason.
Yeah. Alright, awesome. So let's talk about the final matchup a little bit, the ZVP. I'd say one which kind of obviously has changes, and especially late game, but so far we're just seeing a lot more kind of Zerg aggression with the lack of the photon overcharge.
Yeah, I think ZVP, the meta actually shifted a bit. You would say that photon overcharge, you would think that with photon overcharge being gone, the aggressive styles are a bit better, but I actually think shield batteries are way better at defending than photon overcharge. The difference is that you actually have to scout it in quite advanced now, and then actually have to put down the shield batteries. It's not you have.
So it's actual investment rather than something that's just there already.
Yeah, and you actually need to react. Like you need proper scouting. Like it's very important for Protoss in the early stages. And then I think the roles have switched. The Protoss needs to attack the Zerg. They have a stronger mid game now with the Stalker buff and the Colossus buff. And the Zerg just needs to survive to late game because now we actually have the better late game army. It's not like the late game army completely crushes the Protoss army every time. It's very similar actually to before, just the roles have changed.
Okay, that's interesting. So you think late game is just kind of, is late game something you've gotten into a lot in ZVP? Because I hear that's where...
That's in the end what I played for in most of my games. So most of the games I won were probably late game or the Protoss attacking into me and then quitting the game. And yeah, usually late game I don't think I've lost like any matches.
Is that just the parasitic bomb buff, or?
No, I don't use Vipers at all. It's just it's just infestors.
Just infestors that good?
Yeah, the infested Terrans get a lot better. So
of course, right.
Just like usually the late game fight goes down like this. The Broodlords, you make Broodlords just to kill the infested the High Templars, and then as soon as the High Templars are gone, you just throw out the infested Terrans, then you fungal and you neural at the same time. And there's just too much to focus by the Protoss. Before they would need to shift click the infestors that lure their carriers, and then they could win a fight. But now, if they shift click the infestors, the infested Terrans get up, they survive until they're up, and they're just going to lose all their interceptors eventually in the fight.
So how many infestors are you actually playing with late game now? Are you just massing them up, or?
Yeah, actually, like I go to. It depends if they still have Archons or not. So if they only have High Templars as their ground, I make like 8 Broodlords, and the rest some Queens and only infestors.
Only infestors.
Yeah. Usually some other units to defend, like harass yourself, but yeah, 30 plus infestors.
Do you think that's a good style for the game to kind of adapt to, or do you think it needs to be changed?
I think it's not good. I also think the way it was before, where Protoss would camp and then go to late game, is also not good. So something in between, where the late game would be. Like it's super hard to balance, obviously, but somewhere where the late game is like even fights, whoever micros better or whoever has more map control is going to win the fight would be amazing. And yeah.
I mean, the issue with ZVP has always just been that it's so hard to take those late game fights into a Protoss or against the Zerg with the defensive positions and the Zag defense. It's a bit of a tough one to balance, I guess. I'm just going to go through some general quick questions then. What was your favorite change to the patch overall?
My favorite change? Let me think. What did I think the Raven? The Raven? Yeah.
I like that too. It's kind of funny because we're just talking about infestors. It's kind of like the Raven was something you could kind of use as the infestors now, right? Where you could mass upload to them, and they were just so powerful.
I think that's just not a good mechanic that you mass one unit, and if you actually arrive there, you win the game. I think that's just.
I think when Ravens, I don't know what you think, but like when Ravens actually get figured out a bit now, and people kind of find their uses. We'll see like 2 or 3 in the army. I think that's really cool. Like a couple of support units, kind of something like the Vipers were before and so on. Like you get 2 or 3 of them, and they're really good.
I think that's how you should use them. I don't think many Terrans are using them like that yet, but I think you can like disable the Vipers or Infestors in game. It's also with AoE, so it forces micro out of your opponent with just 1 click for you, and they actually need to split and shit. That's really good for you.
If you could change one thing, about, whether it's been changed already or not, what would you change about the game right now?
That's a hard one. If I could change anything, that's a really tough question. I would need to think about that.
Okay, no worries.
Yeah.
I know it's tough. I like throwing tough ones.
It's actually really hard. Honestly, I don't like that the Stalker got so much better. Like people think that the Stalker is still as strong because the DPS stays the same, but the truth is that the Stalker usually pokes in, takes a shot, and then goes back, which makes it a lot stronger. And what I'm really afraid of is because the meta, like the entire build order is changed now with Chrono Boosts, and Link Stalker attacks already are kind of good. That is going to become the meta again. So I would just kind of go back up there a bit on the damage.
We've already been seeing some Stalker sentry pushes. Do you think that's sort of going to come back, like the whole Lobo thing?
I think so, yeah. I think especially if Protoss is greedy in the early game, it's going to be really hard to hold those.
I guess just as one of the Stalker, do you think the Stalker change was necessary now that we've seen the shield battery being so good? Because the initial buff to the Stalker was because we had this whole thing where Protoss were losing the Mothership Core. So do you think they really need that Stalker buff now, or do you think it could just be toned down a little?
It could probably be lowered a bit. I don't know how it is in the other matchups.
They're pretty good right now.
I like the general idea, that they don't rely so much on the spellcasters. That the Gateway army is a bit stronger, but I think it was a bit like it doesn't sound like a lot, but it actually changes quite a bit. Like they're so much better at also sniping stuff. I think it's cool that they're a bit better against Broodlords, so you can actually play ground timings against Broodlords, not only pre-pull Broodlords. So that's cool, but I think it was a bit unnecessary, maybe, or just a bit too much, not unnecessary.
Fair enough. A couple of last things. What do you think of the new maps? Do you like the map pool right now? Do you think it's going in the right direction, or?
Yeah, I think overall it got better. I think before it was very Zerg favored against Terran, and I think now that there's not as much huge maps anymore, it's a bit better for overall. And yeah, I think this map pool is just fine. Like it's just solid maps, pretty standard ones too. Like Battle of, I'm not gonna talk about Battle.
I mean, if there is going to be one crazy map Blizzard throw in, I would say it's like one of the better crazy maps in a way.
It probably is, yeah.
So I casted a few games from it on the Team Liquid map contest, and it's like past the early game, it's like very camp heavy because it's actually very difficult to attack because there's so few pathways.
It's a split map.
Yeah, exactly. It actually reminds me a lot of Ulrena because Ulrena used to become this split map as well, kind of thing, like later in the game.
I think Ulrena was probably, even though we all thought it was a bit dumb,
it was a bit better.
Actually probably the best special map that this
yeah,
was.
That's quite interesting. All right, my last question: how do you go about preparing for a patch, and when something like this comes around? Do you kind of stick to your old build, or do you specifically go out your way to try something like new, or do you just slowly kind of work things in?
Yeah, usually you can have ideas and then you just try them out. The advantage you have with Zerg in new patches, which is also why after big changes Zerg always overperforms, is our build orders don't change. We don't really have build orders. We're a reactive race. We start the game out the same way because it's optimal, and then we just react to whatever our opponent does. So we don't actually need new build orders like Protoss or maybe Terran. But yeah, it's just general gameplay ideas more so than build order changes that you try out.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. If you've got any shout-outs, then please do go ahead.
Well, shout-out for my new team that just picked me up, Flash. Yeah, thanks you for having me.
No worries. Thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it.
All right, I'm here with Optimus. He's going to be our Terran opinion on the new patch. Optimus, my friend, how are you? Good to have you back on the show as well in some capacity.
I'm doing fantastic. How are you, Wardí?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good, feeling pretty fresh today. We're a couple of days after Home Story Cup, which has obviously been the big tournament everyone's talking about with the new patches which has been on. I mean, how was Home Story Cup for you? A lot of fun? I know a lot of players enjoyed it a lot of the time.
Yeah, for sure. It was a lot of fun. Was an exhausting event. I'm still tired 2 days after getting home. So.
Yeah, I'm the same. I'm kind of like, can't I just stay in bed all day? Again, like I already did this the last day or so.
It's especially worse because I woke up yesterday at 4 p.m. So then you're like your schedule is so messed up that
Yeah,
you
I did
cannot really fall
something.
asleep early.
I did something pretty similar. I went to bed at like midnight on Monday, and I woke up at like 3 p.m. 3 p.m. yesterday. But then by the time I got to midnight again, I was tired, and then I woke up early because I actually didn't need that much sleep. Oh, it's been a mess. So, yeah, I mean,
But
Home Story Cup does that.
you actually pulled an all-nighter.
Yeah, on the Sunday night, I pulled an all-nighter too. Because, I mean, I have like a 11 a.m. flight home. I mean, an 11 a.m. flight, I have to get the train at like 8 a.m. or something. You know, if I leave takes at 6 a.m., what's even the point?
Yeah.
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 All
You
right.
could have been responsible and left at 1 a.m., but
Yeah, I mean, I hadn't had enough fun though. I know you had a lot of fun shouting at Drogo and calling him a baboon.
well,
And,
he played
offering
like a
some-
baboon, so he deserved it.
Oh man,
that
Home
was
Story
great.
Cup's so great. It really is
Yeah.
one of the best events. I mean, how was playing Home Story Cup on the new patch? Just in general, what was it like to actually play the new patch at a big tournament so soon, like before it was even released?
I had a good amount of practice going in. There's this Skype group among pros that they look for custom games in, and especially during pre-patch, it was really common to be constantly looking for people. So I felt like I was really well prepared. I played about 120 games on the test map, I think, in total now. And most of that was TVZ and the rest TVP. I played absolutely zero TVT except for the very last day. TVZ felt alright. It was a bit nerfed, like no Raven harass options. Late game being a bit weaker due to no Seeker missiles, so Broodlords are a bit harder, but it still felt alright. Minus Bio being completely dead now. That's a bit of a problem since you're pretty much forced to play mech nowadays due to how the maps work. And early game for Zerg being super Zerg favorite now due to Queens. No Raven harassment. Queen shut down Hellbat openings, Alien run-bys. So, not too much you can do. But TVP, man, where do we even start, Wardí? Where do we even start? A lot of people have told me they don't mind TVZ as much, but I think it's only because of how the state of TVP that makes it feel.
So it's like
Ah.
TVP is just so bad. TVZ needs a bit kind of.
TVZ
feels
doesn't even
okay.
feel that bad. It's
Right.
like, yeah.
Right,
I mean,
okay.
considering mech is quite broken. I'll be honest, mech is like really good, right?
Mm-hmm.
Except for the very late game against Mass Broodlord, but you can always work around it. You can base rate and whatever, so it's not that bad. TVZ, but man, TVP. I never feel like I'm even in the mid game or early game. I always feel behind, no matter what opening I
Well-
do or how much damage.
We'll talk a bit more about TVP in a moment or two because I have some very interesting questions about TVP specifically. So just to kind of recap quickly, what you said was you felt pretty good going into the tournament despite it being a new patch, etc. Lots of people were obviously playing. Do you think because Home Story Cup was obviously going to be on the new patch, do you think that was a big motivator? Do you think people would have been playing the new patch otherwise already, or?
Well, it was announced quite early, right? Around October 1st or something like that. So we knew about a month in advance. And I think it did help. But the last time they rolled out the big patch was 3.8, and I think there weren't too many significant changes that people were bothered with testing.
Yeah.
So I think people would have tested no matter what, but it definitely to a bigger extent, it's been tested now.
Yeah, I think 3.8 was like they were going to change so much, and they were just like, and no. By the time it came out, it was like it didn't really feel that different. But the new patch, I
Yeah.
mean, feels very different. I think is that what you're feeling as well right now?
Yeah, and even though I'm not a fan of the balance changes, I still have a lot of fun playing. I haven't yet to play on the new test live,
Mm-hmm.
but I think it's change is always good, and I'm sure they will change it in some way.
So I was gonna ask, obviously balance maybe kind of a bit kind of skewed right now, maybe not in the right place. But do you like the general, just overall? Do you like the overall kind of design changes they've made to try and make something like, just try and like
Oh, yeah.
the certain direction they've taken with a couple of units? Do you like what they're doing in general?
I think the way they're taking rewarding skillful play more per se, like taking out the mothership core, making so that
Right.
pro players will always are really good with their unit positioning and their infrastructure, get really rewarded rather than being overshadowed by the mothership core.
Mm-hmm.
Stuff like that will make a big difference. Like people like Rain were often complimented for their great defense, right?
Yeah.
Stuff like that will make a big return, and to some extent even for the other races, like there's not too much changes. It's definitely mainly Protoss focused, I think. Protoss expansion, but yeah, I think it's a bit more skill oriented changes rather than 3.8 that just make everything chaotic. I think
Okay.
they went the good route this time. I wasn't a big fan of 3.8.
Yeah, I can't even remember what actually changed in 3.8. Now that I'm trying to think back, I was like,
They made tanks do massive damage.
Right.
Like
They made tanks do
they gave
damage.
DTs blink.
was that when they removed Tankovacs? That was later, right?
Yeah, they removed
Was that
tank
then?
effects.
Was that a year
Yeah.
ago? That's crazy.
It was November.
This
and
year's
something
been so
Berserk
quick.
as well.
All right, well, let's.
Hydra Bane.
Oh,
became-
yeah, that's a Hydra
Yeah.
Bane, of course. How could we forget?
Whoops.
Yeah, okay. I just want to quick. I mean, for this patch, in terms of Terran changes, obviously the big Widowmine nerf is one thing to talk about. Just before we get into that, what do you think about the Raven, which I think is kind of the other real big Terran change? And other than that, there's not been much. So the Raven's been completely redesigned. If you guys aren't aware listening, basically they got rid of all the Raven abilities of old, and they made it this unit which I kind of like it personally. I kind of like the idea at least, which is it's one of these units you build 2 or 3 of, and it supports your army rather than you can build a shit ton of them and they're going to be really fucking good. So I just want to get your opinion on that. Right now, there's like the repair drone on it, which is something like kind of like heals mech. There's the scrambler missile, which is like a small damage AOE thing, but it reduces the armor of units, which is kind of interesting because we've never seen that mechanic in StarCraft before, if I'm not mistaken. And there's the whatever the other one's called, but it basically shuts down mechanical units. and
Disable
attacks.
missile, right?
Yeah, is that what it's called? The disable missile?
I don't know. They gave
Yeah.
it some new name in the patch notes.
Yeah, that's what I
It
used
was
to know.
called not Shredder missile, but the Scrambler missile.
No,
was
is
the name.
that not the one that does the?
No, they renamed them completely.
Oh, okay.
They
Then
ga-
I don't know the names, but
Yeah.
basically the final one is like you can cast on like a mechanical unit, and it basically stops it from being able to attack and being able to use abilities. So it's actually got quite a few uses, and I think the Raven will be kind of interesting to see how it develops. But what's your kind of thoughts on it? Do you like it? Do you like the direction they took with the Raven? Are you missing the old one?
I like the idea, but I don't like the execution of it because what made the Raven so well used was that it had some early game utility, right?
Right.
You could harass with it versus the Zerg. You had to use it in TVT so you could be defensive, and in TVP it was used with some tank pushes. But now it's more of a late game, mid game oriented unit. But what they are often forgetting is that it's a bit of a gas sink, and now that bio is kind of running out of play, mech is already very gas intensive, and it requires a tech lab on the starboard. So you need to change your infrastructure just to get the Ravens out, or you need to make them early, which they're too exposed, especially versus Protoss. So I don't like that execution of it. And I'm not a fan of the spells, to be honest. I think without Seeker Missile, Broodlords will become too strong. Although the repair drone is nice for mech play, but you're never like, my army is half HP. Let me just move out right now, right? Like you'll always
Sure.
repair your units or bring a few SCVs.
So
And the disable, I think, is neat, but
too
I don't think it
situational.
will be too. It will be too situational, and I don't think it will be used often enough. I could be wrong here, and I hope I'm wrong, but I think it will be a niche unit in TVP that you try once or twice, then you face Phoenix, and you're like, well, bye bye Raven, because the Raven doesn't have any armor. It dies to like 7 Phoenix shots. I
So it
believe.
just melts. Wow.
Yeah, like, and now Stargate openers are kind of coming back into play due to how fast the Oracle is. So Phoenix will just hunt down the Raven, and since you have no more PDD, it's actually not immune to Phoenix, so it will
Right.
just be a paperweight.
So kind of cool ideas, but just needs maybe a bit more thought, or maybe just some time to figure it out as well in terms of see where it will be useful.
I think if they really want to push the Raven, they should maybe consider removing the tech lab requirement, but change the cost of the unit maybe, or change
Okay.
the cost of the unit, or
I think changing the
give
cost
it
would
an
be
armor
interesting,
tech maybe.
or be able to kind of like build it off of like a
'Cause the
reactor.
problem, right? They really are trying to push mech in TVP, but there's no good early game anti-air. So you'll have 10, 12 Marines, but if 6 Phoenix fly in, they'll just snipe the Raven. Or the
Right.
Ravens, because you need more than one, right?
Yeah.
So they'll just snipe the Ravens, and then you're back to square one. And the Raven is kind of crucial for making mech work in TVP. So we had this discussion among Terrans. And a lot of Terrans think, well, just because of the Phoenix, you cannot play mech.
Wow. Okay, that's pretty. It's pretty interesting. I actually have a question for about mech TVP in a moment. I just want to quickly talk about the Widowmine as well, which I think was the other major change for Terran. In terms of what happened, it's kind of really sucks. I was doing this with the other guys we just interviewed, Harstem and Lambo, and it was like they were both like, "Yeah, it's really weird." They decided to like buff Zerg and buff Protoss a bit, and they just sort of said, "Yeah, Terran's fine. We'll just remove one of the one of the key units."
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
weird. So the Widowmine change is basically that it now doesn't stay undetected. It fires once, and after firing, it's detectable.
Yeah.
Which is basically completely. It doesn't kill it, I say, in harassment. It just makes it a lot easier to clean up, obviously.
Yeah.
And you've got less
I think
potential.
for
Sure.
the Brood or fence, it's really easily comparable to a Spider Mine that costs supply and minerals and gas and has kind of a one-time use.
Hmm.
I think that's fair to say, right, guys? The mine should never shoot more than once, I think.
Yeah, it should never.
So
Unless you're
what is
really
really
AFK.
the place of the mine in the meta right now? Like, it will be okay against Mutaling Bane, which nobody plays.
Hmm.
People are suggesting giving Drilling Claws the option to hide it, but again, like, what place does it have in the meta? It was only used in early game defense
So-
against Protoss and offense against Protoss.
So the initial change was sort of one of these things where it's like make the mine a less game-ending moment, but
Yeah.
I mean the mine can still be game-ending with one connection, right? Like usually the
it-
second and third connection
yeah.
aren't the game-ending ones.
No, I agree, and I think if they really wanted to push that idea, I think the way they should have approached this was maybe reduce the shield. Like, I'm not a fan of reducing the shield damage because I think it's really necessary versus Protoss. But anything over not being able to make mines or tanks versus Protoss, like now
Mhm.
you're just forced into Liberators, which kind of die to the new Stalkers easily.
Yeah.
So I think if they wanted to push it into like making it less game ending, the way they should have approached this was maybe what they did earlier in Heart of the Storm, push damage to be less splash against shields.
Yeah.
Because I think it's fair to say that Zerg doesn't really have issues with mines, right? They have spores,
No, I
they
don't
get
think so.
queens, links are super fast. And
Yeah.
Zergs in general are better at defense, I think, because they have been the race that was bullied for over 7 years in harassment, right? They've learned how to defend very well. They've always been the race that has to defend, so
Yeah.
I think it's safe to
true.
say that only Protoss really needs the help of a mine nerf, and I can get behind it, because it's really a frustrating unit for
Do you,
low level
do you think
players.
with the nerf they just need to look at maybe changing like the cost or the ease to make mines? Do you think like
Well, right now I don't think mines are any viable at all.
Yeah,
It's
okay.
completely a dead unit in TVP, except for maybe one in early game against an Oracle, but
Mhm.
the mine is not even in time, so
yeah,
it
I
doesn't
mean
even have a place in that meta.
I mean, let's talk about TVP then. We already covered TVC a little bit earlier, where you talked about it's basically about mech. So let's just talk about TVP because I think there's some interesting questions here. I mean, first off, Chrono Boost is pretty good.
No, it's alright.
Yeah.
It's alright.
I mean, it seems a bit ridiculous right now. So one suggestion, Harstem had, I just want to get your thoughts on this, is with the new Chrono Boost, making it kind of have the same effect, only over double the time, so that it would be less effective on like early game
Oh.
units,
yeah.
but it would be better. It would keep the same idea for upgrades, for example. So
Yeah, I actually really like that solution. I think, what's the duration now? Is it 10 seconds or 15?
I think it might be 50.
think-
I'm not 100% sure. I haven't seen that.
We're gonna be professional and say it's 10 seconds because we know our stuff before we. No, but I think it's either 10 or 15. So I like that solution.
Mhm.
But I was also thinking of a different solution, which was so now the Nexus has 200 energy. What
Yeah.
if we give the Nexus 100 energy and make Chrono 25 energy, and reduce its boost speed to either 50 or 25%? So it's more like Wings of Liberty Chrono.
So it's just
more.
yeah, it has a similar
It's more
effect, right?
consistent, rather than you have a big spike in production. Like now, my production is super fast, and now it's
Yeah.
shit. Then you have more consistent, linear graph.
Yeah.
I think that's a more elegant solution, or a Harstem solution. That
How-
sounds great as well.
How different is it from Wings of Liberty Chrono right now? Because
Wings of Liberty was 25%, 25 energy, I think.
okay, it's so
Wait,
so
let me check,
confusing.
actually.
It just I don't know, but like to me, like the Chrono Boost didn't really seem like a thing, and then all of a sudden it
Yeah.
was like I just realized how insane it is, and it's like
Okay,
how did so much
this-
change?
It was 25 energy, and
Right.
increased the build speed by 50% over 30 over over 20 seconds.
Okay,
So it was a 20-second boost, which costed 25 energy for 50%. Now you have either 10 or 15 seconds for 100%. So it's super fast early game.
That's actually okay. So it really just needs the numbers tweaking somewhere along the way.
Yeah,
It could
I think
probably be good.
PvP can be good.
Yeah.
Like, I actually think PvP can be genuinely more fun to play with very small tweaks.
Mhm.
Make chrono boost slightly longer or change the numbers.
Yeah.
Shield battery should cost a bit more minerals, like 25 more minerals, and it would be absolutely perfect. Or lower the heal per second by a very minimal amount, by like maybe 2 or 3, so that it doesn't, so that you can actually kill probes in early game, because it's quite silly to see one unit attack a probe over and over again. Like, a lot of people have told me, just Ghost Rush. But if they make a shield battery, they don't even need detection, because it just out heals the ghost.
So
So
shield batteries are pretty insane. I mean, you already
Yeah.
sort of talked about them. That I think they're a nice solution for changing.
yeah, I
removing
think
mothership
it's a
core.
good band-aid though. It's not the band-aid that the mothership core was. I think it's a good one.
Okay.
So they need to change the shield battery slightly, make it maybe a bit more expensive, change chrono boost, and revert the mind nerf. And I think we'll have a great matchup. That's all they
Awesome.
need to do, I think.
Well, just very quickly on TVP, I just want we sort of mentioned it again, but you talked about mech a little bit in TVP. So you
Mhm.
mentioned obviously Phoenix can come in and just sort of kill everything and make mech unviable. So what I heard you Thermal talking about was kind of bio into mech. Do you have any opinions on this, or do you think it's just a bit of a meme that'll get figured out pretty fast?
Well, I haven't really tried it. I've heard about it. Some people saying 2-1-1 into mech,
Hmm.
but I think I played a bit of bio into mech in TVZ way back in Harder the Swarm when Fantasy once did it
Right.
in Pro League. Do you
Yeah,
remember
yeah,
that?
of course, I remember. On
So
that
I tried
weird
it
map
once.
as
That
well.
was
Yeah.
really strong for like 2 weeks, and then they completely figured it out.
Hmm.
So I think that would be pretty strong, but it would get figured out within a
Okay.
month.
So then beyond that, I guess just again, you sort of think mech just isn't viable right now because of how good kind of Phoenix and hair units are as well, or
It's mainly the Immortal that
The
just
Immortal?
shred mech. So they gave the Raven the ability to disable the Immortal,
Mhm.
but then they forgot that the Raven can just be killed by any Phoenix count.
Right, okay.
So
So it's
that
kind of
is
like
mainly Phoenix.
so you kind of have what you need to play mech. You just sort of need the Raven to be able to survive a little bit longer. Otherwise, you're going to be in trouble.
That, but I also think that well, how was a good way of saying this? That late game Protoss remaxes a lot faster than mech,
Right,
mainly on gateway. So you always need to take a good fight.
right. And because they can
I'm
Warp
not
Prism
sure
as
if you
well,
can
they can
take a
start to
good
just
fight.
super overwhelm. It's
Yeah,
pretty
because
crazy.
like triple Robo Immortal with the Chrono Boost is so fast.
Right, okay.
And
So
then
it's
Prism harassment.
so it's sort of more viable than it has been, but it's still a little bit like
I think it's viable, but it's not gonna be the main style
Okay.
to play.
so it's still about
Like it's
bio.
now in PZ. But I think it will have a place in the
Maybe,
meta.
maybe nice though to actually have it kind of like mech used to be in TVZ, where everyone played bio, but every now and then a bit of mech would seep
Yeah,
through as a bit of a
I think
change.
it will go that route. Like once in a while, maybe once in a best of 5, you can play on a map that's bad for bio. Like I would
Awesome.
love to have that viable. Yeah.
Awesome. I guess very quickly, as you just said, maps. New maps, you like them, you love them. You hate
Mixed
them?
opinions.
Mixed opinions.
I like Blackpink. I think it's
Mhm.
a well done standard map. Catalyst is a bit too open, I think, but it's still I haven't played too much on it, so it's still okay.
Mhm.
Neon Violet Square. Well, my FPS is terrible there, and the pathfinding messes up literally everything that Terran has. Like mech units are too big, so they get stuck everywhere. It's really annoying. And there is one more map, the Battle on the Boardwalk. What a great map!
Great map.
Great map.
Okay.
I like the part where you cannot scout the gold in time. So, yeah, instant veto for Terran.
Okay, well, I'll just leave it there on that. I know you've got places to be, and we've already talked somehow for like 20 minutes or something, which is pretty crazy. So, I know. Time passes so quickly, right? Thank you so
When
much.
you're balance fighting.
Yeah, of course. I mean, yeah, you what? Terran got nerfed. Oh, let's fucking go. All right. Thank you so much for your time, my friend.
Thanks
as
for having
always, please, any shout outs, do go ahead. I'll wrap this up.
Shoutouts to my team, that Pixels, for always supporting me. Follow my stream. Thank you, donation. Great,
please,
great.
please subscribe.
I assume this will be released around the weekend. So have a
This is
great
going to be
weekend,
released
everyone.
today.
Oh, well, have a great Wednesday evening.
Cheers. Have a good one. Alright, guys, that was episode 12 of Natural Expansion, the StarCraft 2 podcast. Hopefully you guys did enjoy. Again, like I said at the very start of the show, if you enjoyed it, you have any feedback, etc., please do let us know in the comments down below, or in the chat, or tweet at me, or Discord me, whatever. You can get in touch with me on Twitter and all that, blah, 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 blah. Obviously, like, share it, especially share is the main thing, you know. That's the most important thing. If you guys share this to people, it allows it to get further and it helps us to continue justify making the podcast. So that's the most important thing I'll say. Make sure to share it. We should have another episode coming out next week talking about free-to-play and a preview of the WSG European Finals, which are going to be held live in Barcelona from Thursday. So enjoy that, guys, and I hope you had enjoyed the great episode. Thank you very much, and thanks again to all the players who did give their time for the interviews.